I'm more of a storyteller. I think that's the biggest thing that people don't realize about me is that I like to tell a story from start to finish, and that's why weddings to me I've enjoyed so much. There's a beginning to the story at the beginning of the day, from the moment that the bride and the groom get ready, all the way until the end of the night when they send off with sparklers or do a grand exit or drive away in a car or something like that. So that's kind of where we try to do. I mean, and try to put our brand and really try to tell that story in a way that is emotional and make it personalized. I think that's really more the way I like to approach things rather than using these kind of big ticket words like cinematic or, I'm a documentary style person. I think
Right.
that's really what it is.
Welcome to The Right Fit. Today, we are joined by Nicholas Yee, an award winning photo and video professional serving New Jersey, Florida, and luxury destinations worldwide. Nicholas is known for creating a work that is intentional, timeless, and deeply connected. He describes himself as both a photographer and a hype man, providing the stress free, elevated experience that allows a couple to actually be present in their own story. So, Nick, your work is all about creating cinematic heirlooms we saw that feel intentional and deeply personal. So, when a couple first reaches out to you, I'm a little curious of like how that conversation starts about their story before we're even picking up a camera.
I mean, well, first, thanks for having me. I appreciate you bringing me onto the show. I'm super excited. Been looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Sure, man.
But I think the biggest thing that I like to do that I think not enough people are doing, not saying that nobody's doing it, but not enough, is that they're not really forming those relationships with their couples. I see it all the time. I mean, I can't speak too much into the entertainment industry, 100% focused on, and you got that. I only can speak on the photo and the video side of things. But a lot of times, and these photographers will just kind of jump in and then just be their vendor. They're not there to guide them, to support them, to really build a relationship. One of the things that I like to focus on is as soon as they jump on with me, from the moment that they have that email inquiry, is I want to find out who they are, like as in people, not as in a dollar figure, not as in another client. I want to genuinely be their friend. So that itself kind of helps takes that whole experience from, a 1 to a 10. And that's kind of the goal with my brand and my business.
I love that. And I think you hit a point that is real in the industry. And I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong way to do what you do, but I do find that some businesses, whether it is photo, video, or DJ entertainment, or beyond that, with all the other categories we have in our industry, it is transactional. It is somebody running a business and it's saying, this is a client that I'm going to get. They're going to pay me. I'm going to give them the service. And that's it. And it's maybe something for the client that they want too, right? Maybe they want that transactional experience as well. But at the same time, it's not for everybody. And I find myself relating to what you're saying because I do the same thing with my couples where I like to go deeper. I like to make those connections and really get to the point where their event feels different because there was work done behind that. But I think what we find is, and let's be real, sometimes people don't want to put in that time, maybe don't want to put in that work. And, that's what it is. Like you're talking from the first conversation, the first email, this and that, like you're going a little extra, but maybe asking extra questions, getting to know them a little bit better. Sometimes people are like, hey man, like what's your budget? What are you looking for? Okay. Package A, B, or C, let us know. Cause if not, we got another 100 inquiries waiting as well, and then that's it, but unfortunately, like I said, it's kind of like one of those things that I feel like not enough couples know about maybe. And so I think it's smart for them to kind of do the research too.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, part of the consult process and the inquiry process does involve finding out that information. I always,
Yeah,
part of my consults, I have to find out where they're getting ready, if they're going to church, what time is
of
cocktail hour, what
course.
time is reception. And that's definitely transactional.
Of
There
course.
needs to be some kind of information that is shared because otherwise I can't give them the best recommendation. Part of it on the consult is a discovery for me as much as it's a discovery for the couple. I
Absolutely.
wanna find out, all these different information, the details that really is gonna build their wedding day. But in addition to that, I don't even talk about that kinda stuff until realistically, I'm probably about at least 10, 15 minutes into the call.
Mm.
I mean, part of my consult process and what I think makes me unique is I genuinely, like I said, want to find out, how long they've been together for. They've been dating for 10 years, 2 years. Did they just meet yesterday and they're doing this on a whim? Who knows? Like that's the
Hey.
kind of, vibe I'm trying to figure out, and trying to figure out if we're riding the same wavelength. I mean, this all kind of boils down in my experience to finding your ideal client. My ideal client is not going to be the same as your ideal client or the next guy down the street. So some people, like you mentioned, are very transactional, and sometimes couples just want that, and but that's not the right couple for me. I want to walk into their wedding day feeling like that I've been friends with them for 10 plus years,
Mm.
and just happen to know how to take a photo. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's the kind of feel that gives them that confidence, that excitement, the bond, the level of trust.
Yeah.
I mean, you throw whatever adjective you want in that statement, but it lets them be themselves on the wedding day and not feel so much like, well, this guy's showing up. Holy crap, he's got a big camera. I don't know what to do with it. I'm
Yeah.
freezing. I feel like I have to like put my hands somewhere or put my feet somewhere or stand a
Yeah.
certain way. No, I just want them to have the best day of their lives. And I just am there to document that.
Yeah. No, that's very valid. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, there's some things that are, I call it a little bit more black and white. Like I need to know your date, I need to know the venue, I need to yeah, I just we some of the information is just kind of industry standard in a sense. But like you're saying, there are other questions that are more meaningful or maybe more intentional that go a little deeper and that are relationship builders and that are rapport builders and so on and so forth. So I think that's great that you put in that effort personally, because like I said, I resonate with that because that's part of my process and how I like to establish my relationships. And, whether you booked me a year in advance or a year and a half in advance, whatever, like it's almost like that excitement because people do feel comfortable and they are excited because of the genuine relationship that is being built along the way. So I love that you share that. And like I said, like you said, it's not a one size fits all. You're interviewing the couple like they're interviewing you at the same time, you
I
know?
mean, and I find that the best couples that I have end up kind of seeing eye to eye on a lot of things from the get go. I
Mm.
mean, not only that my engagement sessions that I do is something that helps me build more rapport with them and really can get to know each other. Cause up until that moment, usually we just know each other. I call it as like two-dimensional beings on Zoom, right? Like
Yeah.
we know we exist. We are actually humans. You're not talking to like some AI bot, or at
Right.
least right
Not
now,
yet.
not right now. Give it 5 years, we have no idea what's gonna happen, but up until that point, we're just on our computers. We just see each other. We don't know what the body language is like. We don't know how goofy we are or serious we are in person, that kinda stuff. I mean, so that was part of my process, and then now I'm even sending, like, little questionnaires to kinda get them to know them beyond that, hour and a half that I spend with them. Simple stuff like, "What do you like to do on date night? What's your favorite
Mm.
thing about other people or your partner? How you see life, what your goals are, that kinda stuff, and that helps me really build a character profile, if you wanna
Yeah.
call it that,
Right.
or there's gotta be a better way of saying that, that sounds,
Right.
like I'm profiling somebody, but essentially,
Right, right, right.
I'm trying to understand who they are as a person because, we as wedding vendors probably don't know our couples for more earlier rather than like 18 months in advance. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a couple that are, in 2028 and that kind of stuff and I'm booking already, but it's just like that's still only 2 years that I have to figure out who they are for the last 20, 30 years of their life.
Right, right.
So all
That's
these
true.
little things kind of build up into, figuring out who they are as people. And that's kind of the best way to look at it.
Yeah, and I think that's all part of the experience. And I actually was curious about, I'm always curious about how people end up where they are today, right? Like this is your thing, like this is what you enjoy doing, but we learned that you discovered this passion at 13, correct?
Yeah. I
We got
mean,
that? And
my
so what was it? Like was it a technical discovery? Was it an emotional one? Like tell us about that.
this is a long story. I mean, but so I'll try to condense it so you're not, falling asleep on me. But
All right, all right, all right.
I think the whole thing and the reason why I love photography in general, not just as a whole on a macro level, is that I love looking back at old photos. I like looking at taking photos to remember that moment in time. If you go on my phone right now and you go into my iCloud, I'm probably embarrassed to tell you how many I have to actually look, but probably 50 50,000 photos in my iCloud just from over the years from, I mean, some of it's some of my professional work, some are also just like, life moments, that kind of stuff, whether they're phone, whether they're from the camera, and I just put it there. But really, since I was a kid, I was always been fascinated with cameras. Not sure what drew me to it. Couldn't ask my 5-year-old self, and I wish I could. But then when you mentioned 13, I got my working papers in Jersey. I got my dad to sign off, like, okay, he's actually able, like, we know that he's working. He's
Yeah,
like, it's
this is legal.
the legal stuff, the boring business stuff, as I call it. But I worked, in my dad's office pushing papers. I mean, realistically, what can a 13-year-old do? I
Right.
mean, so, I pushed papers here and there. I worked the whole summer while all my friends were hanging out, going to do, their hangout sessions and going on these excursions and all that kind of stuff. I was working, realistically, I was doing about 3, 4 days a week in the office.
Wow.
Just, I mean, not like super long hours or anything like that, but enough that it's like, okay, this kid's a little different.
Okay.
Worked that whole summer. I bought my DSLR, my first one that I worked for at the end of the summer. So I didn't spend a single dollar,
Wow.
and that's where it landed me.
That's a big commitment.
From there, I mean, genuinely snowball effect. I started learning. I was like, let me figure out how this thing works. Let me figure out how to take a picture. Okay, this looks like crap. Why does it look like crap? I'm a tinkerer. Like, that's my mindset. I do things hands on or visually.
Mm.
And probably part of the reason why I end up in photography. And pretty much went through and did a bunch of different genres of photography, if you want to call it that. I started in the automotive world doing cars and going to car shows and became media content people for these different organizations. Went to portraits and then I did aerial photography for a while out of a helicopter over New York City,
Wow.
did real estate. And then one of my buddies said, "Hey, you got a good eye. You should try weddings." I looked at him like he had two heads on his shoulders. Like, I was like, "You are absolutely crazy." But,
Yeah.
I dipped my toe into it and it just yanked me in and I've been here ever since. Like, I just found that was my calling, and part of the reason I look back on it, hindsight's always 2020, is that I love that nostalgic factor, and that kinda comes full circle to how I got into photography initially, and now that I can use that passion, I guess, for my couples, I think that's kinda where we ended up. So,
Wow.
I know, long story, but trying
No,
to condense
no.
it.
No, it's crazy how, like, in the sense of, like, it's all part of the journey. I mean, I admire the fact that a 13-year-old was disciplined enough to save the little money that you probably had and then say, "I'm gonna buy this one thing with it." And then what if he didn't even like that thing? Like, it could have been like, you're like, all right, I give up. Cause this happens in photography and DJing. Like, a lot of people give up too, because they're
Mhm.
just like, oh, this looks cool. This looks fun. And then just like the camera sits there, the DJ equipment sits there, and then they never do anything with it. So that was a little risky, a little bold for you for a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
And fast forward to where you are today, your journey brought you to where you are. And another part that clicked with me was I thought I was going to be a big club DJ when I first started DJing. The thought of, and I did a little bit of that, but like being on a flyer and thing, like those were like the cool things for me, right? And then same thing, like weddings at the beginning when somebody was like, what? And now it's like that's my main thing, what I enjoy doing. Like I genuinely enjoy doing weddings,
We eat,
the
sleep,
different
breathe it, right? Nothing
yeah,
else.
the age groups, the cultures that I can bring together, like all the things that I can do with music. But yes, looking back at it, I was like, I don't know, I was gonna end up here, but here we are. You mentioned genres, right? Well, obviously the different areas that you've done over the years, but because we saw that you have a cinematic style, right? So I don't know if you would consider that a genre or a style, but like, is that something that you chose or that you do to kind of be in a certain part of the market, or is that just how you see the world? Like you're just a cinematic lens like guy all the time.
I mean, I think over the years, just you kind of get that experience and look at the world a little bit differently. Like, I notice even walking around, let's say if I'm out with some friends, I'm looking to see where the light's hitting, where a good photo opportunity might be, that kind of stuff. And I think that's just occupational hazard in some sense. But I think part of it is a lot of it is just discovery. Like, if you asked me what I was, 10 years ago, how did I get to here? I'd be like, I have no freaking clue. Part of it is definitely, some of it is luck, some of it is some planning, so it's making sure the stars align if you believe in that kind of stuff like that,
Yeah.
whether that's also God's plan for you, that kind of stuff is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
And kind of where I end up today is all due to stuff that's not necessarily my control. But to circle back and I mean talk about, the word cinematic to me is more of a I'm more of a storyteller. I think that's the biggest thing that people don't realize about me, is
Mm,
that I like to tell a story from start to finish, and that's why weddings to me I've enjoyed so much. There's a beginning to the story at the beginning of the day, from the moment that the bride and the groom get ready, all the way until the end of the night when they send off with sparklers or do a grand exit or drive away in a car or something like that.
mm,
So that's kind of where we try to do. I mean, and try to put our brand and really try to tell that story in a way that is emotional and make it
mm.
personalized. I think that's really more the way I like to approach things rather than using these kind of big ticket words like cinematic or, I'm a documentary style person. I think
Right.
that's really what it is.
Okay. So could you break down a little bit more for like, because I know some photo and videos terms and styles and stuff like that. Could you break down a little bit more of like what is actually happening behind the scenes, like to capture like these raw, like unposed moments, like without interrupting the flow of the day type of thing? Walk us a little bit through that.
Part of it, I think, is more of a gotta be a fly in the wall on some
Mm,
sense.
okay.
I don't typically over direct weddings. What I do in my workflow maybe will give you a better understanding of kind of where my mindset is at. I help my couples build timelines, that kind of stuff, and tell them, what time certain things should happen. But it's very loosely followed in the sense of like, okay, if I told you family photos are going to start at 4 o'clock, I'm not watching my watch or like looking at the time and saying like, okay, 3:59:59 and go, right? Part of it is just letting the organic moments happen, let it flow. I think the way that I do a lot of my posing is a very candid posing style, and what that means is I even tell my couples on the engagement session from the get-go, like, "I will tell you how to pose, I will teach you to get used to the camera, to get more importantly, probably more used to me than the camera, honestly,
Yeah.
but you do your pose, you interpret it however you think it happens, and I'm so that type A type photographer where I'm extremely detail oriented and looking at the most weird things going on in the background or where your hands are or stuff like that, that
Right.
I will correct you if I see it. But
Okay.
if I don't correct you, just assume you're doing everything 100% as I intended it to. Even if it's not like translating 100% from my head to their head, it's still just kind of part of that organic moment and allows them to really become themselves, showcase their personality. So I think part of the wedding day scene also kind of follows that rule where, if the bridesmaids are having fun, I'm not going to be like, "Okay, guys, wait, look here for the photo." Like let them have that moment, the couple is just like laughing at something that somebody else said. Let them laugh, snap that photo, and let them get that photo. There's moments for sure that we have to pose. I mean, there's formal photos, there's, their portraits, everything that we have to worry about in that sense. But I would say majority of the time I'm just looking for these little in-between moments or these like where maybe we're going from church to the reception, but we see, something that happens. A little kid walking around having the best time of their lives playing with the bubble guns at the church exit.
Mm,
I'm snapping those photos. I know there's something
gotcha.
else going on there, but that's why we also have multiple photographers.
Interesting. So, what's interesting to me is a few things. I mean, I love the fact that you play a big role in guiding couples because I do hear from couples that getting in front of a camera is probably one of the most uncomfortable things for them. They're not used to it. Or, once again, you're also saying they're getting used to another person being behind that camera, right? If I'm taking a picture of my wife, she's like, whatever, it's my husband. I don't care.
Right.
But if it's a stranger, she might care a little bit differently, right? Or might make her in a different comfort level. But what stood out to me is you mentioned or you define, you describe yourself as having that type A, but I see some type B in there because you're also going with the flow. You're letting things be organic. You're not, so thing about the timeline and things like that to the minute to the thing. So you are adding a little bit of the other side, which I think can make that perfect balance for being a creative. Because I think sometimes it goes one way more than the other. And sometimes I feel like I've met creatives that are great, maybe super talented at what they do, but when it comes to like a wedding or an event, they're not great because they're not flexible or they're just like, not being, understanding of like some things happen during a wedding day. That's life. If you've done weddings long enough, things
Oh,
come
yeah.
up all the time.
I mean, and at the same time, I mean, you can define things by type A and type
Yeah.
B and, left or
Yeah.
right, up or down, but I don't
Yeah.
think there's ever a true perfect, one side
Yeah.
or the other. So you did, mention hybrid. I definitely lean towards the type A because if you come and look at my timelines and you come and look at the stuff behind the scenes, you'll be like, "Oh, this guy's got his T's crossed, his I's dotted, and then some." But at the same time, I think the weddings you do need to allow for that organics thing to happen is to be a little bit more relaxed, and just kinda go with the flow. I mean, part of it is that, but it's also just like, at the same time, my other side, the type A side's like, "Well, if I don't get this covered, who's in trouble?"
Yeah, yeah, you need you it's like the devil and the angel or whatever, like, yeah,
Yeah,
you
right.
you you
It's like,
need that,
Shut up, I know."
uh yeah, I gotta do it." So, for those listening or watching, Nick and I just randomly connected at an event or a wedding that we did not that long ago, and we just for whatever reason, things were a little actually delayed, and we ended up having more than just like the, "Hey, what's up, man? What do you do?" Conversation that most vendors have because there's no time during the wedding.
A
We
wedding
ended up
being
at
delayed? What are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah. So we talked chat for a few minutes, and one thing that stood out to me is that I know you work with a large team. You're not just a one man show. So a question is, what is like one of the hardest leadership lessons you had to learn to ensure that your team kind of matched your energy or your standards for what you're trying to accomplish with your company?
I mean, in a sense, there's multiple answers to that question. Could be a loaded question, could be, a very controversial subject to talk about. And I think this kind of is just personal opinion. I think ultimately there's no right or wrong way of doing this, but the biggest thing is making sure you see eye to eye with a lot of your team members. I mean, just like when you do consults with couples and you talk to them, you got to make sure that you're, no pun intended, the right fit for them. See
Yes,
what I did there? Now you got to pay me 25 cents
I
for that.
like, yeah, royalties coming through.
But, in all seriousness, I think that's part of it is making sure that you bring the right energy, they match the same energy, and not exactly because not everybody's the same, but at
Mm,
least get the majority there as well. The other side of it and the hardest lesson I think you can learn as being a leader or an owner of the business is knowing boundaries in the sense of knowing when a relationship is good and knowing when a relationship is bad, whether that's internal or external. Everybody knows each other in the wedding industry, and I think that goes a long way. I mean, you do something wrong in this wedding industry, guess what? You're going to be on the paper next morning. On Monday morning, you're going to be on that front cover.
yeah,
You
all the
see
group
all
chats.
these, yeah, all the group chats, all the Facebook groups, you might make it even to like the 5 o'clock news. Who knows? But I think that's part of it. I mean, that's something that is, I guess, kind of developed and you kind of really solidifies whether you are meant to be a business owner or not. There's plenty of people out there that don't want to do the business ownership. They want to do the fun part, which is capturing a wedding day at least on my side with the photo and video stuff. They love to show up, they capture the wedding, then they go home to their families and don't think twice about it. I mean, some people are like that. I mean, you'll, in my opinion, work a lot more because you're going to need to fulfill your schedule with volume to make similar money and income. And I mean, ultimately, that's what it boils down to because we are running a business at the end of the day,
Right,
whether you own a business or you're just trying to pay your bills. But at the same time, that also is okay because I have plenty of people on my team that want to do that. And they don't really want to do more than the fun part, which is capturing the wedding. They don't wanna manage contracts, they don't wanna manage the timeline meetings, they don't wanna do the post-production, and that's okay.
yeah,
I think that's really what, is kind of the whole idea of owning a business, and also knowing, when you have somebody that's not up to par with you, to
mhm,
let them go. I mean,
yeah,
you can still continue a personal relationship, and sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But I think that's also another hard leadership thing that you need to know is when, they might bring some negative energy to your business that could ultimately harm you, whether it's not tomorrow, could be a year from now, 2 years from now, could be even
right,
next week, who knows?
yeah, for sure. Tough conversations sometimes to have, but necessary conversations to have. And I know personally for me, it's things that I guess, as I've matured and evolved as a person, as a business owner, as a leader, sometimes it's things that I learned the hard way, decisions that I had to make that I probably should have made a year or two before or whatever it is, but delayed, or you give it the benefit of the doubt, or you just don't follow your gut, or you see the red flags, like it's like a relationship. It's like any relationship. You're just like, I should have been out of this thing a long time ago, and everybody told me, but I just stuck it
I
out,
mean,
and I feel like
hindsight is
happens to lead.
20/20 though.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
you can beat yourself up all you want about it, but just take it and take it as a life lesson, honestly, is the easiest way. I try not to beat myself up over it. I know there's times that, and I'm sure you can relate, is we've missed trends, business opportunities, that kind of stuff that we
Yep.
realized, oh, we could have done that had we
Right.
known about it. There's no
Correct.
point of to looking at nothing you're going to do now is going to affect the past.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. But I think it's an important thing to that you noted this, or maybe a topic once again, because this show is essentially for other people in our industry as well, whether it's wedding, whether it's events. And at the end of the day, if somebody is in a leadership role or is the entrepreneur and running this thing, this is a part of what we do. The scale could be small. It could be you're leading one person, or you could be leading five, or I know some companies that are leading 50 people or more, or whatever. That scale can change. But at the same time, I think whatever leadership skills you have are applicable to small or big groups, but understanding that sometimes it does require tough decisions, hard conversations, and boundaries, right? Like you said, hey, look, maybe you're not a good fit for my company, but maybe we can have a relationship outside of that, right? So you set the boundary, not for the company, but there's the boundary outside of that. We could still have some type of relationship, or be social or cordial, whatever it might be. And I think it's also very important that you noted that, we are in an industry that, yeah, word can get around. I've known people who've come and gone, very talented, but from the business side, not very good. And, you see those things out there. Hey, I never got my photos. I never got my video. I never, this happened, that happened. You're just like, your name, your brand is like, now that trust factor is gone. And that's a hard hill to climb back up, once you start losing all that.
And trust and respect are the two hardest things to keep once you
Right.
earn it. I mean, it's
Ooh,
already hard to earn it, don't get me
right,
wrong, but
right.
once you lose that entirely, it's like my best analogy is you could take a piece of paper, you crumple it, you can heal it, but it's never gonna be that same piece of paper.
Mm-mm. Nope, nope. It is not. It is never going to be the same. So, no, I'm glad we touched upon it, because, like I said, it's a real conversation. Sometimes, like you said, like not a conversation that everybody wants to have or agree with, and everybody has their own style of leadership as well. But it is part of the entrepreneur slash business owner journey, whether you like it or not. Eventually you probably will get to that bridge, and you'll have to cross it. I have a question regarding, like, I guess, a wedding detail that most people, and maybe even some photographers, ignore, that you realize that is actually an important moment, you know, and people kind of just skip over it, if that makes any sense.
That's a that's an interesting question because I mean, I don't think there's always one that kind of goes from each wedding. Every wedding is unique. Part of what I, make couples aware about is that weddings are similar from wedding to wedding. There's a laundry list of items that weddings share. What kind of food they have at cocktail hour. They're going to get married at church. They're going to do a table dash, whatever you want to call it, right? They all have, and I know that's your favorite thing to do, by the way. But I think some details that it's not really necessarily a photo or a moment to capture, but to understand that there's that story that a lot of photographers I think don't kind of come back full circle to, and try to really be able to tell that story of that couple's wedding day. I think that's the biggest thing. It's not really a moment that I'm looking for or anything along those lines.
Okay. Very cool. I mean, because, sometimes with what you're doing, you see different things than that other people see, right? And I think what people sometimes forget about photographers, from my understanding, is like, you guys are spending a lot of time with the couple throughout the day. So you guys are seeing a lot, interacting a lot, and having like a different type of like day of connection slash communication slash guiding. Like, there's a lot
Mhm.
going on. So sometimes for me, I'm also using this as a learning for myself platform. Like, what am I not seeing that's happening through the day that maybe is beneficial or that's important? So I think that's what that kind of roots from as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to really pinpoint because at the end of the day, you're always constantly learning about something. I think that's the biggest thing that, while you may be the best in your industry, you know, you can be well talked about, you can win all these awards, you can put all these
Totally.
accolades on your website, you know, how many people though really truly learn something to take away from at the end of the day? I think that's the biggest thing. And that just kind of goes with my life in general. Is just like always consistently and constantly keep learning about something. If you learn even half a thing, you're doing exponentially better than the average person, I think. So
Always.
figuring out, I think the biggest thing is to be kind of also that type B personality that we talked about a little bit earlier, I think is something that I've definitely learned over the last couple of years as well. Is, you know, when I first got in the industry so many years ago, I was like, you know, this has to happen, and this has to happen, then we have to do this, then we have, but then that made everything not organic.
Yeah.
And I think those are moments that really that couples will cherish, is letting things happen and let the moments unfold and you just document it.
Yeah. And another thing that kind of came to my mind, in talking about, like I said, this contact that you have with the couples throughout the day and like what we're talking about right now, you're dealing with like sometimes some high pressure moments, emotionally sensitive moments throughout the day, is and we hear this term in our industry, like what is your take on like having a stress-free wedding day? Like is that realistic? Is that a myth? Like I understand that as vendors we're going to try to do our best, but like I said, you're seeing a lot. Like, is there such a thing?
I don't think there's ever a such thing called a stress-free wedding. That's kind of like an oxymoron or a contradictory statement, I think. I mean, everything in life just has its stresses, but especially on a wedding day when there's so many moving parts that just kind of come together to this moment or this day in time, I think is what creates the stress. But, you know, as vendors, we have to kind of put a lid on it and just do our best to not put any additional stress on the day, even if we're internally stressed out, that's totally fine, because we maybe are falling behind, we're, you know, maybe we missed a moment or whatever it is. But I think part of it is ensuring that the couple has a good day. I mean, there's a lot of things when it comes to weddings that you know, stress free doesn't make any sense. I think that's just really what we have to focus on, is that this is a moment that, you know, for most couples, they've been dreaming of, whether that means from the time that they were a little kid, you know, planning out their dream wedding in their head or their imagination or whatever, but or even when they started, they're like, "Oh crap, I'm engaged. Now I have to plan a wedding." So I think
Yeah.
there's some give and take there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think part of maybe your experiences or maybe what you're doing is it's like saying, look, it's not necessarily going to be stress free, but I'm going to help you manage this stress so it doesn't feel so stressful. I think there's a difference in that too. You as an expert and as a guide throughout that day, like I said, being so hands on with the couples throughout the day.
I mean, part of it is in the way I approach wedding days is I don't want them to work their wedding. I mean,
Mm,
I think that's a big takeaway that I've kind of realized as well. And I actually straight up tell my couples, let us do the work as vendors so that you don't have to. The biggest thing that I want my couples to do is be present with their family and friends. That's the number one priority. I
yeah.
know they hired a great photographer, they hired a great videographer, they hired great entertainment, they could hire great florists, you know, so on and so forth. But, you know, just trust that when you hire somebody that's experienced as a professional, that we're gonna get that job done for them and not have to let them micromanage everything else that's a part of the wedding day. So I tell couples that being present with your family and friends and creating those memories is definitely a number one priority. Absolutely no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And while photography is important, I don't think it's number two. I kind of make the joke and say, well, it's kind of like 1.5. Right? It's still very high up on that priority list, but it's not like, okay, if we don't get this photo, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's 1.5. I love that.
It's a
I'm gonna have
corny
to
way
steal
of
that
saying
one.
it, but it makes people understand it's still important,
Yeah.
but it's just not the importance.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's once again kind of creating those conversations and having that open dialogue to kind of once again relieve like the okay, maybe I'll survive, like cuz sometimes people have like the end of the world mentality. Oh my god, this didn't happen.
Yeah, this
And
candle's
everything's
not
like
lit.
yeah,
Oh, this welcome sign is in the wrong table. It's supposed to be on the left, not the right, you know? It's like,
man, I've seen so many of those moments. I saw one time, I wasn't even the room reveal. The bride walked into the main ballroom by herself and was looking at all the cards on the table that were almost like the menu slash like welcome cards, let's call them. And there was a typo on them. This, I mean, stationery is done. We can't, you know, like the shipping's not gonna come. We cannot do anything about it. And I literally was like, just had like a heart to heart. I say, hey, look, is there anything that we could do about this right now? Like, she's like, no. I'm like, go enjoy your cocktail hour, please. Like nobody's probably even gonna notice. Like it was like a small minor thing. I'm like, just go enjoy it. We cannot do anything. I was like, if I could, I would. If you could, I'm sure you would. I was like, we cannot do anything about this thing right now. It's impossible. Even if we went to FedEx, Kinko's, like we wouldn't be back in time. Like it just
I
we
don't know,
can't do it.
Amazon might have the same day shipping that might help us
Yeah,
out, but
between 4 and 8. That's a
yeah,
little
right.
unreliable
Which is
sometimes.
kinda
And they
crazy
keep
to
me.
think about, not to sidetrack us. You know, you
Yeah, no,
order
hey,
something and the next thing you know, it's on your doorstep at 4 o'clock in the morning.
don't give these brides any ideas, Nick. All right,
Sorry, I'll keep my mouth shut.
take
Actually,
this
maybe
out.
that's a good business model.
Yeah. Save the day, save the wedding. Okay, we'll talk about it after the show. Nick, I've been doing a lot of reflecting myself as I've once again have gone through this journey, as I've matured throughout the years, personally, and so it makes me think about uh, a little bit of the journey that you shared, and with your 13-year-old self, let's call it. If you could kind of sit down with him, and what do you think is an important piece of advice you'd give him about like where he's going to be or the man he's going to become?
That's a interesting question. I don't know if I really have I'm not one of those philosophical, super wise kinda guys. I'm still
No,
still kinda
you
learning, but
ah,
I think the biggest takeaway, and it's what's kinda driven me as through my entrepreneurship, journey, is
yeah,
to just not give up. I
mm,
mean, I think that's the biggest thing that I can tell myself is times will get tough, certain times where it's like, I wanna just pull my hair out, put my head through drywall, you name it, throw myself off my roof of my house, I don't know, whatever you wanna call it, but I think part of it is just genuinely just put your head down and just don't give up. I mean, I think a lot of times, and I've seen it, or especially once I've joined the wedding industry, is that there's a lot of comparing and contrasting in the sense of, I'm going to compare myself to this photographer that's been doing it for 30 years, and I'm just
right,
getting into the industry, and I'm not
right,
doing what that 30-year-old experience or that 30 years of experience is doing compared to me.
right,
I just tell people, it's like, look, at the end of the day, put your blinders on, just do what you think is right. Every
right,
once in a while, pick up your head, take a look around, look left, look right, just see what the industry is doing, seeing
right,
if you're kind of aligned with it. I
right,
mean, that's really what's gonna is that. So it's something I could tell myself from if when I was 13. I think is the biggest thing is just do it. I mean, now Nike's gonna sue me,
oh, hey, don't no,
but I think just don't give up. I think that's the biggest thing, and just be determined. Have a goal.
yeah, right,
I always relate to a clip from, I think Matthew McConaughey said, he's like, oh, he's always chasing his 10 year self in the future. He's never going to
mm,
meet that 10-year ahead. You know, I'm
mm-hmm,
30. I'm like, okay, where's my 40-year-old self going to be?
yeah,
I'm never going to get there, right?
yeah,
Because once I turn 31, then it's going to be 41. So
yeah,
I'm always kind of chasing that.
mm,
And I can definitely, if you're interested, I'll share that clip with you. But I think it's a very
yeah.
something that's very impressive and just kind of changes your mindset.
Yeah, I love that take, and I love like that don't give up. And I think part of it is like something that I've thought about or reflected on is the moments that people don't see, right? A lot of what we do sometimes to get where we are or where we're going sometimes is not something that is seen out there. The moments, I call it the repetitiveness, right? Like you learning how to use that camera and practicing, or me as a DJ stumbling over and doing the same thing over and over again, and I'm like, damn, I suck, and but eventually you get better, and you get better, and you get better, and then people see the what we call the overnight success, or like you said, now you're comparing yourself to the 30-year, but like they put some time, there was repetition, it was mistakes, it was the lessons learned and all these other things. And I think part of this show too is to connect with not just people deep in their journey or somewhere in the middle, but also people who are just starting it as well. And for them to know like it's okay to be where you're at, because somebody else was there just not that long ago too, right? And we're always, you said it earlier in our conversation, it's that always learning mentality. I think when we stop feeling like we're learning or we can't get any better or whatever, then maybe you should kind of throw in the towel at that point, because I find that too. The know-it-alls and the people who are like, yeah, this they're usually not the most chipper person at events. They're not really having those connections that we're talking about. They're just there like, I cannot wait to go home right now. And that's it.
I think and to kinda go off of that, I mean, the loudest people in the room generally don't know anything. I think
Yeah.
that's usually what you've seen, and I'm probably gonna get, flamed online for that because of it, but, I mean,
No.
I think the biggest thing, like you said, education, learning, making sure that you're actually keeping up with what you told yourself, whether that's an internal goal or what the industry is comparing yourself to.
Yeah.
For example, every year I go out to Vegas for a big photography conference called WPPI.
Okay.
Every
Yeah, I heard of that.
photographer and portrait photographer. It's a big photography conference. It's held every year.
Okay.
Thousands of people go.
Wow.
Would I say in the most recent years I learned a lot? No, but I learned a little bit. And I
Okay.
think that you can still take away. I still will go to these photographers and see what they have to say, even if
Uh-huh.
I don't agree with them, but I learned 1% of what
Yeah.
they are teaching. I
Right.
still have a lot of value in that. And then that kind of boils back down to the way I run my business. Ultimately, the people on my team, I want them to be successful. I had somebody, one of my photo assistants recently, he's like, "Hey, I want to be a second shooter. I want to go get more into weddings." I said, "I will absolutely teach you everything I know. I don't gatekeep anything. I will tell you how to do it, and I want you to be successful. Ultimately, I don't want you working for me for the entirety of your career." I think that's a big thing that I've learned over the last, I want to say 2 years or so,
Okay.
where it's like, "Hey, you wanna do and go out and do your own thing? Do it. I want you to be better than me. I
Yeah.
want you to take what you can do and, reach for the stars."
I love
Granted,
that.
the side I think now I'm sidetracking into gatekeeping, but I think that a lot of the information in the wedding industry as well is that people don't wanna share that information. I
Yeah.
mean, you see it, I'm
Mhm.
sure, all the time in your entertainment side. I see it all the time in my photography side. It's like,
Yeah.
certain way of doing things and so on and so forth, but why? We're all here to work for the couple. Why are we competing with each other? A, and then B, even if I told you everything, I know for a fact you're not gonna do it as good of a job as I can do.
Right.
That's
Right.
where your experience comes in and not just the knowledge. So
Correct.
that's just, all things that kind of boil down to, hey, remember, just learn, keep educating yourself, keep making sure that you're doing what you think is right, and just every once in a while check to make sure it is right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an evolution. It's never gonna be so linear, so to speak. And when things change in the industry, like you said, you got to take a look left and a look right. It's sometimes even to the extent of how we're communicating with couples and how we're connecting with these couples, and you know, forms of communication change, and all these other things that we just have to kind of evolve as well. Yes, we have to have our systems and we have to have our ways to manage things, but sometimes even that, like that email that you were using a couple of years ago, might not hit the same. So maybe it's time to give it a little update, or it's little tweaks, little minor things that you maybe learn along the way as well. And the gatekeeping stuff is very real. And so, maybe part of that, I feel like sometimes it's an insecurity thing, but I think you hit it on the head where from a DJ analogy perspective, I can give you the whole list of songs on my computer or whatever it is, and you're probably not going to mix it the same. You're not going to maybe play it in the same order. You're maybe not going to deliver like so. Okay, like you are you, I'm me, and it's not always going to be the same product just because you have similar materials or the same camera or whatever the case may be.
And I
You
and
have a
I think
different.
that creates also natural competition as well. I think it's also good to I'm a competitive person. I like to be the best out of best. Well, I know I'm not the best of the best, but I try to strive towards that.
That's good.
Even I will constantly enter my photos into different competition. I will try to get published, stuff like that, because that also helps reaffirm that I'm doing the right thing. So that also keeps me sharp. But also, once I tell you how to do something, I want you to do it better so that I can then one up you. I mean, honestly,
Yeah,
that's kinda as silly as it sounds when you say it out loud, I think that's really what it boils down to. It's like, you guys can go off the same, song set lists and be like, "You have to hit these X amount of songs, but you're gonna do it something one way, and your, competitive or competitor is gonna go a different direction," and it's the same thing with photography. We can take the same couple, same thing and everything, but we're gonna capture it all completely differently.
for sure. Absolutely. So I know you're a busy man that has to run a business, so we're gonna get into what we call the rapid fire part of the show, where it's more of just off the top of the head. The answers don't need to be as elaborate. And the first question is, what is one detail guests always remember most about an event?
Think as a from a guest perspective, I think they genuinely remember how your vendors treat other people. I think that's really what the biggest thing. You go on countless amount of, even my reviews, people will say like they had a great time. I think that's ultimately what it is, whether that's DJing, whether that's photography, whether that's any other thing in especially in our industry, I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I love that. If you weren't doing what you're doing, aka photography and behind the lens, so to speak, what do you think your profession would be?
I have no idea.
No.
Genuinely have no I no one has
No.
ever asked me that before.
No? Okay. I've gotten some interesting answers, like, I would have been like a pop singer, or I would have been like this.
I
Like,
mean,
sometimes people have like these alter, knit worlds that they're like, oh, well, I guess if I wasn't doing this, I'd be a
if I
chef. Or I
wasn't
don't
doing
know.
photography, honestly, I'd probably be flying planes, honestly. That's something that started a
Okay.
couple years ago and then just ran out of time and money just from running a business, and
Yeah.
that would be
Awesome.
something I would be doing.
I love that. See, look, there's something in there. Last rapid fire is, what do you think is the secret ingredient that makes a moment truly unforgettable?
I think that's gonna boil down back to not over-directing, not over, doing something, let it happen. I think that's your emotions is the biggest takeaway from it and the biggest selling point, if you will. I mean,
Yeah.
the reason why you remember something is because it's emotionally attached to it. So, I think,
Yes.
I think that's really what it boils down to.
Yes. Those emotional attachments, good or bad, will last for a long time.
Hopefully, it's good, especially
Yeah.
at least if you're working with me, hopefully it's good.
Yeah. I hope so. And then the last question, not necessarily rapid fire, so answer as you wish. What makes a client the right fit for your energy and your art, you think?
I mean, I spent a lot of time talking about ideal client and building my ideal client. I think the biggest thing is that we have to have the same morals, the same goals, the same viewpoints on life. I think that's really what it kind of comes down to, and looking at it that way. I mean, a person, if you don't see eye to eye on it, it doesn't matter. You're not going to change their opinion. So why bother?
Yeah. Why force it too? Because it's not going to be a good experience from start to finish either. Um, Nick, this was an amazing conversation. I truly appreciate you joining us here today and sharing your insights. I knew the day that we connected briefly at the wedding that you'd be great for this show. So thank you. I'm very grateful for that. Where can people find you? Where are you active? Are you on social media, website?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on social media. It's Nicholas Yee Photography. I mean, granted, I'm not as good as social media as other people, so don't hold me so super accountable for it, but it's there. Everything else, you can find me by nicholasyee.com.
Okay.
So happy to have a conversation with anybody else, whether you're a potential client or just want to just have a coffee.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. Thank you for whoever tuned in to watch or listen to us here today at The Right Fit. And of course, we hope to see you guys next time. Take care. Peace.